What's up, 26ers? Welcome to the December 26er podcast. I am your host, Delisha, and we are back with another episode of Extraordinary Occurrences with our producer, Damarcus Adisa. What's going on?
What's going on?
So we were looking at the dates and we realized we hadn't done one of these in like 8 weeks.
It's been a long time. We shouldn't have left you without a dope pasta step two.
It's just crazy how like the time just flies. Like I don't know where it goes, but it goes.
Like time, I read somewhere like the older you get, the like shorter time durations of time are. Like when you're a kid, like a day feels like forever because you haven't lived for that long. But the older you get, it's just like when we was in grade school, the calendar did not fly by like this. Like, and I feel like as soon as I get winter clothes, it's June again. Like,
yeah, you know, it's what people say when you have children, the days are long, but the years are short. I think it applies to just adulthood after a certain age across the board.
Straight up, because I feel like every time there's a countdown for something like taxes or like, registration, anything that's like that requires bureaucracy, like you just look up like, oh snap, that's tomorrow. Here
it is again, right?
Like,
it's constant.
I just paid them taxes.
It's a whole lot, but yeah, I mean, so we're here pushing through once again, recording this episode. I feel like everything and nothing have both transpired in the last 2 months.
A lot has transpired since the last time we were on. Somebody had an article that went public.
I did.
Business Insider.
And you know, so I did it like, I conducted the interview, or was interviewed, I should say, the end of last year. And then sort of just kind of forgot about it, you know, because it's got to go through edit and get cleared and see if it's actually going to get published. They don't give you any guarantees. So just who I am as a person, I just tend to temper expectations. And then life got busy. And then all of a sudden, Business Insider was like, oh, by the way, this is going live today. And it was out there.
Out there in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel, having a piece of your story out there in a major publication like Business Insider?
You know, I didn't think a lot of it at the time. And again, I think that's just a personality trait that I just tend to do something and sort of keep it moving. I don't necessarily revel in it as much. But it wasn't until other people started talking to me about it that I realized, oh, wow, like this is making an impact. And I think I didn't think as much of it because I knew that was just such a minuscule piece of my own story that like it doesn't encapsulate really who I am, right? It's what you would expect from an article from a business focused publication. So, you know, for me, I just sort of did it and was like, oh, this is a great feature. But I knew that like so much of me wasn't revealed in it that I probably didn't think it was that big of a deal until like other people made it a big deal. And then when I finally posted about it and shared more of sort of my story and how I got here, that's when I felt really exposed and like vulnerable in a way that the article didn't cause me to feel.
Why did you feel so vulnerable?
I don't know. I mean, I guess for a long time, I've shared pieces of my story, but I've generally done it with two different types of audiences. One, like small mentor-mentee type audience, and sort of using that as encouragement for someone coming behind me who may have had a similar experience and now is trying to figure out how to navigate. And then on the other side of that, maybe large audiences, but audiences that look like me specifically. So, you know,
She talking about black people, y'all, not Spaniards.
Which we will get to.
Which we will get to.
So, you know, it's one thing to have those conversations within your own quote unquote community. And it's another thing to put them on display for everyone to see.
Right.
So I think for a lot of Black and brown folks who work in corporate America, especially, we spend so much time crafting a certain image. And it's not a false image. It's just the version of us that has been groomed and conditioned for those spaces. And oftentimes you leave your personal story out of it, your personal difficulty, your personal obstacles that you've had to overcome, because you've just been trained to do that. Check all that stuff at the door and get in here and compete. Put your nose to the grindstone and get it done. But the reality of it is that those experiences that make us who we are part of the reason why we can go in these spaces and survive and thrive and do well, because that grit often comes from a lot of what your family has seen and what you have seen. So I am trying to be more intentional about revealing parts of my story that really account for who I've become and who I am becoming.
Right. And I think there's another piece. You probably won't say this, but I'll say it because I'm not attached to anyone. It's like, I don't want y'all up in my business like that, because me sharing this and divulging this in a corporate setting, what does it do for anything? Most people can't even begin to understand the world that you're coming from, the upbringing, less like in a lot of these settings, especially when we talk about these white collar firms. Well, you have those, you have people from other communities, or sometimes people who are first generation Americans that can kind of identify with it, but it's a very unique experience coming from not only just being Black, but coming from a Black family when you're the first to do a whole lot of things.
Right.
And I think the conversation that is, and you alluded to this in like your post, is like you get a lot of life wisdom, right? Everything is not formal education, formal training. You get a lot of life wisdom from family members and things they gleaned about people, because that's a thing that's universal. People don't change. You can get an understanding of people whether you're in college or not, like a certain social psychology, social intelligence that's important to navigate these spaces. But like the other part of it is just like, again, you have to discover a lot of things on your own. And again, sharing these details just can create awkward situations versus like helping you, or people feeling like you're some sort of charity case. They got to do something extra, or feeling like you're feigning your situation to get more support.
Right. Which is never it. Right. But it can feel like that, like you're sort of trotting out this sob story about how you had to overcome because you think it's going to bring something back to you. And for me, it's, we've built a whole show around like radical honesty.
Right.
But that radical honesty, fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, is not required of me as a host. Right? I can temper how much I say in these conversations because it's about the guests. So even though we've spent the last 4+ years, almost 4.5, cultivating this space for people to come on and say, you know what, this is who you see in the public. This is who you see at my office. This is who you see on social media. But this is everything that makes me me that I may not have discussed before. I can sprinkle that in and dabble that in on the show, but it's not like I'm being interviewed, and I dig into it that way. So even with that as a backdrop of being a podcast host who has provided that safe space for so many people at this point, it felt a bit new to do it for myself, on the internet.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to take that step to show more about yourself, and also to give the people their just due that weren't included in that article.
Absolutely.
Because when you have, especially business publications and just people from different communities shaping a narrative, and they say, oh, well, you didn't have this and you didn't have that, but there's a lot of other supplemental things that you can't even quantify that I was given that allowed me to be here, and giving people their just dues. Like, people joke about Black people always giving shout outs and awards or when we're on TV, but that is meaningful because most of us understand it's a collective effort. It's not just your own doing. Yeah, you have to be disciplined. You had to do the work. You had to get the grades. You had to show up in attendance. Like, we talking about going all the way back to elementary school. You had to do all those things, but it's a village of people around you to help foster that energy and keep you on the right path. Because as you divulge, there's so many ways that stuff could have your life could have went left.
Exactly. And two, if you think about just that collective effort, even generations before us, of people who've done anything to make strides and step out of whatever their comfort zone is. You hear those stories of people like, I got on a bus and my family sent me on that bus with 2 chicken sandwiches and $2. Right. It's something that I think culturally we hold dear, that we may not have a lot, but whatever we have will come together as a village to help you. We may not be able to give you a blueprint. We may not be able to pick up the phone and make sure that our connections are now your connections, but whatever little we have, we will take that and try to help you just go a little bit further and make it another day. And so that was important for me to craft that narrative outside of the article that was more so about, oh, I didn't have a blueprint, right? And I was in all these in a strange land. And so I'm glad I did it. When I first did it, I was like, ooh, should I have done that? Right. And I thought about actually pulling it down because it felt so raw. And ironically, it felt raw, but it's not the rawest part of our story by far. Right?
No.
That's the neatly packaged part.
You gave them the BET Blackbuster Cinema. Like, there's certain parts of that story where the mouth is not lining up with the voiceover.
The voiceover saying something totally different than what the mouth is saying. Yeah. Yes, it's definitely the sanitized version. But it was important to honor the elders and honor, the people who have really invested to help to get to this point, and so. So it feels good. I mean, the question always becomes when you have moments like this, it's like, oh, what's next? What's next? It's all about momentum and, brand building. And I don't really know what's next, honestly. But I'm happy it's out there. It's just another feather in the cap, another step on this journey. And it has opened doors and it continues to open doors as well. So we'll see what happens. R.I.P. to the ancestors, man. Yeah.
Everyone that's not here. And I think the thing that I thought about, and I think about again a lot of times that people don't even realize, a lot of times the support is just you, like the things that you miss, you might have taken for granted when you were alive is just the phone calls.
Right.
Somebody telling you that they love you and they're proud of you. Those simple words mean different things when different people say them. And to hear, to be in college and have Nana call, or to be afterwards working and have Pop call and say, I sure am proud of you. Mm-hmm. That just felt, because it's like, man, your parents, I don't even know if they ever went to school. Y'all fought and clawed for everything that you have. And you hear that joy, all right, at least you hear that joy, they're like, okay, my efforts were not in vain.
Right. And I think that's the painful part for a lot of people, in that for a lot of different reasons, often the ancestors they become the ancestors before you reach a level of success. And that's not everybody's story. Right. But if you just look at your friend circle, that's a lot of people's story. That the people who sacrificed through blood, sweat, and tears to help the next generation do a little bit better, and the generation after that, because of our life expectancy issues for a lot of us, the grandparents are gone before even the first dream realization happens, let alone, reaching any modicum or pinnacle of success. So that is hard. And it's harder when you meet people whose grandparents are alive and you're in the age your grandparents would have been. Right. So there are people out here with the longevity, but a lot of us don't have, are not blessed in that way. And it does offer up a little bit of just pain. You hope there's somewhere looking down on you, right, proud, but not being able to, get those calls, like you said, and have those conversations in real time, or just shut out the outside world and watch a movie or have a meal in those safe spaces. You take it for granted when you have it. And then when it's gone and it's just you against the world, it's a lot.
That's a whole lot.
Yeah, so I am looking ahead. We've been talking a bit more about what the rest of the year looks like, for the show, and we'll get into that. And I'm thinking more about my own personal brand and career and all those things and how it all sort of works together. But I knew too, you know me, I'm nothing if not strategic. So I knew too, like, even though that putting that a little bit of my story out there was hard, I'm just at a point in my career where these worlds have to start to collide. And before, it was very easy to be lawyer over here, you know, corporate person over here, secret creative, secret speaker, all these things. And now I'm at a point where it's just got to come together. It doesn't serve me or anyone else to leave those worlds separate. So that's really the path that I'm on. And I'm fortunate in that, you know, I have people around me professionally who support that, and a company that supports it. And this is the first time I've actually done press with my company mentioned. I've had some features before, but it's always been about my own thing. So that feels good, you know, to, even though it's new territory, to bring the worlds together and bring who I am as I am to my career as well.
Y'all better get y'all equity stakes before that number change. Better invest now, I'm telling you.
So, but that's not the only development we had over the last couple of months. So let's go back to Christmas. Anybody knows me knows I'm more about the giving of the gifts and receiving. I like to give people things that I know they might really like or value, or, you know, whatever, or things that they may not buy for themselves, but I know that they want. So this year I decided to get African ancestry DNA kits for you and for mom as well. So if you guys know anything about African ancestry or these DNA test kits, it's like the patrilineage and the matrilineage. So you have to have a male in your family to do and it's a specific male to do the DNA for your paternal lineage. And then you have to have a specific woman do it for your maternal lineage. So I gifted you the patriclan test, and gifted our dear mother the maternal test, right? So when I looked it up to do it, at the time they were saying like, oh, the results take, I think it was like 4 to 6 weeks or something. I can't remember, but it wasn't that long. Due to COVID and everything else, when you finally sent the test in, you know, I was expecting it to not take that long, and they said like 13 weeks or something, right?
It was something crazy.
So before I kick this story over to you, the other driver for this, well, two drivers. One, if you guys don't know, Damarcus is a huge history buff. So personal history is included in that. So I knew that he would value this in a way that, you know, other people may not. But also, we are of a family where we don't know a lot about our lineage.
Right.
And we have not been able to trace that back for very far. A lot of different reasons why that's true, but there's a lot of our identity we just don't know. You hear what may be folklore, what may be the truth. But again, as is the case for many Black families, we just you can't trace back 5-6 generations. Right. Not all. It's gotten better, but not all. So this was about figuring out, okay, what African tribe did we come from? Like what country, African country did we come from? This is going to close some gaps, hopefully, whatever. We can move forward with a sense of pride. Our mother's results are not in yet. But Damarcus, you got your results, and what happened?
It's ironic because I was actually on the phone with mom. So we were talking, I thought about it, and I looked up my results, and it said that I belong to the people of Portugal and Spain.
Oh, man. Well, what did it say? It says you share
ancestry.
You share DNA. It's like 100% match to people who are settled in Spain and Portugal. So it was weirdly worded.
It was really worded. And like, I read the letter and looked at the certificate like 5 or 6 times. And what was so wild about it is mom was like, how? And then when she just had that moment like, oh yeah, that's right. Slavery. And it's like, we were talking about this the other day. It's like, we found a levity in it. Oh my God.
It was a great couple of days.
It was a great couple of days. It's like jokes. A bunch of them I'm not going to say for the sake of keeping the standard of not putting an advisory on here. But we just found a levity in it. But it's like, that was the last thing that I was expecting to see, is to share ancestry with these people. But that's the reality. And that's the reality of a lot of our existences, is that whether we want to admit it or not, if you're Black and your people are a product of the transatlantic slave trade, like, you probably got a sizable amount of European ancestry.
Yeah, I think what shocked me is that the European ancestry part had not been a secret. I mean, we'd heard from family members on that side that we had Irish in our family and all this other stuff. So I anticipated some percentage or something that was of European descent. What I did not expect is for them not to offer up any African ancestry. They were just like, yeah, Spain, Portugal, good luck. Doesn't mean you're not Black, but Spain, Portugal.
Yeah, and
here's your certificate.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like Yoruba, Igbo, Fulani, something. No, brother, you are connected to the people of the Iberian Peninsula, which is just like, wow. But it's not absurd, because the patrilineal side of our family, our father's side, is from Jamaica. Jamaica was controlled by the Spanish at one point, so it's not far-fetched
at all.
But it just makes you wonder, okay, like, was this a product of some sort of sexual violence? You know what I mean? Was it a consensual relationship? Because from what I know about the racial interactions in the Caribbean are different outside of the U.S., different set of rules, different everything. But we know it's probably a good chance that this wasn't a love story or whatever. And we kind of make light of it. But in the grand scheme of things, I remember I was talking to someone and they're like, I was like, I was taken aback at first. It was just shocking. They're like, what is there to be shocked about? I'm like, we speak about these things in these grand terms, but it's different when it's personalized, right? People talk about, Europeans this, white folks this, that, and other. But it's different when you can say, all right, you got this in you from this specific country. It makes it personal.
Right.
It's not like some large story. No, this is directly tied to you. You could be like, I feel like I need to walk in Newark in one of them Spanish restaurants. Like, one of y'all owe me something. And when I say Spanish, I don't mean Dominicans or Puerto Rico. I'm talking about España. People from like Madrid, or Valencia. Like, I need to walk in one of there. Like, I need to talk to one of y'all because I am old.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, I studied abroad in Spain. So I was like, I didn't know I was going home to the motherland. And what's so funny is after a week in Spain, I just felt so at home. Like, I really just enmeshed in the culture. I love how much slower it was. I was taking classes at a Spanish university, all in Spanish.
And for those of you who don't know, Delisha speaks Spanish, like not like kind of Spanglish. No, vosotros form Spanish.
Yes.
Conjugates verbs and everything. Can write and read in Spanish.
It's crazy. So I literally studied political economy, like classes like that in Spanish. Never thought it was a birthright trip versus just studying abroad. But so we are still sitting with that information. And for now, sort of the path that I'm taking is waiting for mom's results to come in. Right. Because our maternal lineage is out of Florida. So those southern roots, I'm going to believe and hold true that the results are going to be different, given that our grandmother and her ancestors are from Florida.
You know what I didn't think about to this point? What if mom's lineage comes back in Spanish too? Because the Spanish control Florida as well.
Don't even speak
that.
If
it say Spanish, I'm going now. I'm putting an accent over some of the letters in my name.
Conquistador.
Conquistador.
So, now you put that idea in my head that it could potentially be the case. There's no way. There has to be African blood running.
It's got to be. All of our grandparents are black. Like,
yes. Well, Unky, our paternal grandfather, he looked like something else.
He looked like he could have been
mixed
with something else, man. It's different color eyes. He's like maybe Delisha's complexion a little lighter. He was different looking, but still, like, to be blackness is a very wide spectrum. So
right, absolutely. So, yeah, Spaniards and Portuguese for right now until we figure out the rest. And then also it gets dicey because that patrilineal, those results don't include our paternal grandmother. Right. So we don't know what was on her side, and given the living relatives that we had and the way the tests work, we actually don't have a living relative that we could test to get the results that would apply to us as well.
Right.
So we're sort of in the dark there and just have to go with Spain and Portugal for right now on our father's side, and then wait to see what the maternal results say.
I'm thinking, Jamaican side, that's a country that's been majority black for a very long time. We're going to get some real details. That blood is probably untapped, just pure, uncut African. Nope.
No.
Nope.
Right. So counting down, we'll provide an update once we have the maternal results, and we'll see what happens. Y'all, just please say a prayer for us. Please.
Please. Por favor.
So what else is going on?
Oh, man. Aside from that shock, I'm trying to keep my word. I publicly stated on here that, I want to go to film school. So I kind of been working on some things, trying to get into a program. I don't want to jinx it, so I'm not going to give any details, but been working to put together, an application, do some writing. And Lord Jesus, when you don't do academic writing for a long time, it's a struggle. Like, it's still, the skills are still there, but it is, I don't know. It's just like, it's not like riding a bike.
No, you gotta exercise that muscle a little bit before it comes back. Right. It will, but I don't envy you going through this process.
Yeah, writing academically versus just texting your friends is two way different things. Like, I really had to teach myself over how to do bibliography and citations and things like that. I forgot, you just can't say stuff. You have to find the exact page.
Right. And you have to use the right citation format. AMA, Chicago, right, MLA style, it's all these different things.
Turabian. Like this, and it seems like the other day, but literally I've been out of school for over 10 years.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, I graduated in 2011.
Wow. Okay.
So, aside from, that program that I did recently, but that wasn't heavy academic writing. But, that stuff used to come easy. There was a point in time I could write a 10-page essay in one night, no problem. Mm-hmm. Like citations and everything. Literally, and you know how it is. You're a lawyer. There's a lot of people don't understand there's a technique to reading. Once you understand the thesis of a book, what a book is about, and the points that you're trying to prove, you don't need to read the entire book. Right. There's a way to attack a book systematically to get through it and retain the information and write about it. And when you master that, you can do a lot in a short period of time. But when you don't work that part of your brain and that muscle, it's like, hold on, I got to reread this. Hold on, wait.
Right. But I'm confident this is going to work out for you. I think this is where you're meant to be. It's the logical next step for your long-term career goals, and for you to add some of those technical capabilities to, which is really just raw talent and YouTube University that you have right now.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so that'll be good.
It'll be good, man. But I wasn't proud, y'all. I was over there reading with my finger.
I'm telling you that the brain atrophies after a while. It just does.
It does, and it's not that I can't read, but it's one thing to read things that you enjoy. It's another thing to read things that are scholarly, things that are dense, mm-hmm. ideas that you're not necessarily familiar with or haven't touched in a while, that you have to refresh yourself that these things weren't written for everyday people to enjoy. These things were written for other academics.
Right.
So it's no different from like a musician getting extra for another musician, or than anything else. Like preachers preaching, theologians preaching for other theologians. They about to pull the Greek and the Hebrew out, everything. So it's just, again, reworking that muscle. But we're here. It's still there. It didn't go away. It's just, I'm in the process of getting myself mentally back into shape.
So what are you feeling about it? Excitement, anticipation?
Oh, it's definitely excitement. Because I think, and we were kind of talking about this earlier, it's exploring something that I'm passionate about and like, you know, making a go out of it and put myself out there. But also it's kind of different from prior times that I've put myself out there. Just think about my initial foray into college. I didn't really have a support system. Like I had family and stuff, but it's different to have an academic support system. Right? People guiding you. This is what you should be doing. This is who you should be talking to. This is how you should go about it. You know what I mean? I didn't really have that going into college. And then I don't even know if I had the humility piece just to listen, because so much of it when you're trying to strike out on your own as an 18, you're like, I got it. I can figure it out. I'm an adult now. But a lot of it is just, you do not know what you don't know. And you should seek the advice and the counsel of experts. That doesn't mean you have to follow what they say by law, but it's always good to get a second and third opinion on something, to go at it yourself. You wouldn't, you know what I'm saying, if you got a blood clot in your leg, you wouldn't be like, I'm going to slice my leg open and get the clot out myself. I was on YouTube. You wouldn't do that. You would go to a doctor and talk to them about, hey, what do you think I should do? And if you don't like what that doctor's saying, you're going to go talk to 2 or 3 other doctors to get a second and third opinion. Your life and academics and career, in my opinion, are no different. Right.
Absolutely. It's a learned muscle. And I think, too, when you go to school and, okay, it's like I got through that part. I got here. I have my classes. I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm making friends. Often the first thought is not, let me put together a support system here and seek guidance to make sure I succeed academically. For some people, the first thought is like, how do I make money? If your education is not paid for, or your education's paid for, but not your everyday expenses. So like, I have to find a job. And that often, for a lot of people, can become the purpose of like you're building, or I should say the focus, you're building the academic piece around the need to make money. And it's very hard for young people, especially, to manage that.
Oh, that's a whole fact, because I was working like 30 hours a week my first semester for minimum wage, back when minimum wage was like $5.15.
Right.
Like you got to do everything just to make a few $100s, right? To pay your phone bill and, to have some money for food, just extra stuff. Because if you don't have it, nobody wiring me money this week. If you don't have it, it's like you go to the next person like, hey man, think I can get some noodles up off you? You got any extra laundry detergent?
Right. Yeah. So it's a different level of stress, when you're worried about the economic piece on top of the academic piece as well. I mean, that's why I love a lot of these programs that are sprouting up. And I think they've always existed, but I feel like they're becoming more ubiquitous around providing those support systems, not just for undergraduate, but graduate degrees as well, like helping to give people a chance and a leg up to not only get in, but get in and be primed to be successful. Right. That's really important, because the truth of the matter is grad school is a whole other bag, and so is doctoral programs. So you could have been someone who thrived in undergrad and still flounder at the graduate level if you're not careful, especially if you're someone who's working and doing it as well. For sure, because again, you're walking into a whole different world. It's familiar, but it's way different expectations on that level. And oftentimes, like, we being frank, when somebody who's black or brown, you may be walking into a hostile environment. Very true, which we've seen happen. We've seen happen. I got, I'm not going to speak about anybody's business, but it's people in my circle I've seen happen firsthand that, they get accepted in these institutions on a graduate level, and it is not what they was told it was going to be. It starts to feel like, oh, I'm filling a quota so that they can say they have these numbers and these faces and these brochures, but nobody's here is trying to ensure my success. Exactly. You know what I mean? It's just like, all right, we're going to let whatever happens.
And if this person falls out of this program, it's just something we can use to say, see, I told you. I told you about how they are.
Yeah, I'm actually reading this book right now by Yvonne Durant, who worked in the advertising business for years. And the book is about her work, but also her relationship with Miles Davis. But she's talking about being someone who came out of FIT, got into advertising very early. We're talking like, the 60s. And she was saying that the advertising industry at that point had shut minorities out to the point where like the federal government got involved and started mandating training programs. So they had built out these training programs, a lot of the major ad agencies, to bring Black and brown candidates in to train them up to succeed in advertising. But the way the program was rigged, because they didn't really want the demographic makeup to change, is that they would bring in an entire trainee program, but it would be like 2 really strong candidates, and the rest would be like people they pulled off the street that they know would just flame out anyway, so that they could say they tried without actually making any improvements with respect to percentages. And it's crazy that like now we live in a day and age where access to more resources, the programs have been around for a while, they're a lot more fleshed out and sophisticated, but some of the same subconscious principles apply. Like, if you flame out, you flame out. Like, good luck, right? Not realizing that there's a level of support that may be needed with respect to just navigating culturally in these spaces. And that's why I will always give credit to minority administrators at all institutions, not just historically Black institutions or PWIs, because as someone who's gone to 2 PWIs, in both schools, I had Black administrators who knew how to come and pluck you out and say, listen, you're going to be successful here and we're going to help you. Even if you're not looking for help, we're here to provide it because we know what you're walking into, and we've watched how people come and they can stumble, or you can thrive. And so I think it's really important to have, even though the numbers can be abysmal at a lot of these schools, that representation in an administrative capacity that can help you, even when you don't have, as you said, the humility to look for the help, or you don't even know to look for it.
Because, boy, it's just I think it's a lot, just the environments that you come up in and how you're groomed and raised. But like, I just feel like a lot of people have a lot of pride, and they don't want to be perceived as like less than.
Yeah.
Like coming for help or raising your voice up sometimes is a source of pride, and you feel like you're being weak. Like I don't know, but you can't. You don't know what you don't know. It's not that you're not capable. You just need to be brought up to speed. And a lot of times we flounder, things happen, and by the time we speak up or say something, it's either too late or you've gotten so deep that you just give up.
Right. Exactly.
And I've seen it happen. I saw it firsthand happen time and time again, even at a historically Black institution.
Yeah. So, I mean, and with your journey and where you're going, I think you're laying the proper foundation that you will have a much better support system. I should say you've laid, right, between your fraternity, but then other things you're adding to it. Like you said, we won't jinx it, but I think you're laying the proper foundation to really have great success, and also you're just going into something that you were purposed to do.
Right.
And, when there's that alignment as well, and it's like, oh, I'm just going to get my MBA because somebody said I should, or I'm going to go into this program and be a teacher because it's safe. When you're aligned, it doesn't mean that you don't have challenges, but there are certain things that, as they say in the church, come under subjection, right? That just come and bend to your will just by virtue of you doing what you've been purposed to do. So I'm excited to see what the next year holds as you can prepare to walk on this journey and get admitted into a school and then be studying your craft full time. That's exciting. But that's also a great segue into what else we wanted to talk about, and that just things are changing so much. We're trying to figure out how to maintain the things that we work on together in our individual passion projects, with life continuing to look much different as time progresses.
Yeah, because things are just kicking up in all aspects.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out, how do we keep this thing going and moving forward in the right direction, y'all? Right.
It's not easy. And I know we've talked about it before. I guess that was last year sometimes. We were like, after just loss and so many things, just the stress of the pandemic, and it was just a lot going on. We had contemplated taking a break, and people were like, don't take a break, keep going. People who had taken a break. People who had taken a break were like, don't take a break. But we are coming to that conversation again. And this time for different reasons. It's just more so trying to figure out how to manage, because you're about to be on the road.
Yeah.
For a considerable amount of time for the next, 6-7 months?
Yep.
Yeah, back and forth. So you have that going on top of applying to school,
to programs, on top of still shooting, and editing,
running your business. Most people know, if you listen to the show regularly, that I had started the next chapter of my career at the top of the pandemic and have been moving full steam ahead with that. But that just requires a lot of focus, right? And that's my primary focus. I've always done all these other things around that because that is the job that pays me, right? And that's the thing that, of course, I went to school for, and I'm going to ride that career until the wheels fall off. But I've always been able to balance that with everything else. But I am in a position now. We're in a position as a company where, high growth, when you're in that high growth phase, man, and if you look me up, you'll see, we never mentioned it on the show specifically, but that Business Insider interview will tell you, and LinkedIn and everything else, just where we are and where I am in my career and where I sit in the company is very different than working for a big old school Wall Street bank, which is where I came from, where, things were well decided and there were guardrails and protocols, and the job was really almost like autopilot. You have your special projects here and there, but how to do that job. When you're somewhere else where you're building and expanding, it requires a level of mental fortitude that is very different than what I had to do before. This is taking me back to solo practice days, where every day somebody's calling with, a different question or a different issue. So with that level of effort that is required within my career, all of this other stuff has a slot in between that, which we've done it for a while and we've managed, but also 40-year-old me is just a different bandwidth and capability than 35 or even 3 years ago, 37-year-old me. So we're trying to figure that out. And it's philanthropy season for us.
Right. August will be back.
In the blink of an eye.
Before we know it, that has to be planned. Money has to be made. Things have to be coordinated. And that's a lot of effort. On top of running the show, trying to make money and doing all those other things. It's just a lot to run with a skeleton crew. It's sort of you feel you got some spinning plates or something that. Or you Lucille Ball in the chocolate factory trying to with this lunch trying to stuff everything.
My favorite I Love Lucy episode.
Putting it in your shirt, in your mouth. It's crazy. For those of you who are young that don't get the reference, look up I Love Lucy in the conveyor belt. It'll come up on YouTube. It will come literally up. One of the most famous gags of all time in TV history. It has been replicated multiple times, multiple TV shows, but that's what it feels like. It's just this conveyor belt of things coming at you and trying to manage it all and stay on top of it and not. And I think the main thing that you didn't touch on, but I'll say it, is trying to do all these things well.
Right, exactly.
And having a certain level of quality to all these things and not just putting things out that are mediocre. I wanted to say something that involved a half of a posterior, but we got to keep the TV Y7 label on the podcast. But not just throwing anything out, try to be thoughtful and intentional about the quality of work you're putting out in all aspects of your life. Because if you're just pushing out a bunch of mediocre things, what are you really doing? Or whatever. It's
true. And with, the community work that we've done, we set the bar so high that first year and we pulled it off. But it was a year plus of work. No vacations, no nothing like that. It was job, whatever you do that pays you. I think you were in school at the time.
Right.
Getting another degree. So that, and then everything else, it was like podcast, host a fund, podcast, host a fund. And we did it. And then coming into the next year thinking, okay, we have a blueprint. At least we know how this works. Just run the whole plan back. And the pandemic meant no, there was no plan. You have to figure out how to operate. And so we did that for 2 years. And then now you would think, okay, let's just go back to the original blueprint. But hey, a lot of things have changed. The help that's available to you, things like that. Everybody's just in a different headspace. Companies are in a different, even small businesses, some that might have helped us then, who knows if they even exist now. So there's that piece of it. And then also just our lives look different. Our energy levels look different. All of those things. I know that we're both prioritizing our health in a way that wasn't the case before, which is like by any means necessary.
Yeah.
Sleep when it's over, and I can't, I'll speak for myself. I can't function that way anymore. So we're looking at a number of things, where I am professionally, even professionally outside of the day job, but also where's my personal brand going? We talked about that a bit in the beginning. Trying to manage that. You now applying to film school. You are going to be on the road for a considerable amount of time. How do we continue to keep the show going? How do we keep the micro content going? And how do we plan our 4th back to school community event?
Right. And then outside of those things, you still have ties and responsibilities, right? You still have friends. You still have family. Organizational obligations, things like that, and things that you're curious about, and then working and rest and whatever else you need, mental health breaks, all the other things within those things. Like it is a beyond the full-time job, right? That's
it. And then, people they get what you do, but they don't really get what you do. So then you deal with people being like, oh, you have a day off. Let's link up. And not realizing that this may be the first day you've had off in 6-7 weeks, where it's like, I can't move. Like I need to sleep. That's a hard thing to explain to people, because it's the output where downtime is not really downtime. It's just shifting your attention to something else. Vacations are not vacations anymore. It's, we have to do these 7 things, right, to get ready for the next thing. So we know this pace is not sustainable forever. We are assessing sort of where the show is, looking at the metrics, the rate of return from the show. And we don't look at rate of return necessarily from a monetary perspective, because if that's the case, you would have quit a long time ago. This show has been self-funded, for over 4 years. But the rate of return around like, how's our network benefited by this? What are the connections that we've built? What are the things that are not necessarily of monetary value, but are of importance to us that we've created with the show that we feel is generating a return on our investment? And there are many boxes.
Oh, for sure.
We can check there, but the reality of it is you have to have very honest conversations about how long am I going to continue to do something just for the sake of it, of being passionate about it. And what am I giving up to continue to do it, right? When it's not bringing value to my life in a very real, like quantifiable way. So that's the conversation we're having, and is the trade-off something that we want to continue to make?
Right. And by no means, I know some people here just like, they stopping the show, Right. I don't think it's that. It's just at all. I don't think it's that, but it's just how do we go about this in a more effective way? Right. Does this mean less content? Does this mean seasons? What does this mean? Does this mean we're switching from a weekly format to another format? Just figuring out what does it mean to something that's that's manageable and meaningful, still having the same impact, same quality, something that can be built upon, but just manageable. Absolutely. That is really the thing that we don't have an answer for yet, but we are considering. We are considering that. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what it is. Our original plan, I don't know if we ever mentioned this, but like our original plan was like the show wasn't going to seasons until we monetized. Right. Until we monetized it, and we felt like we had like gotten to a point where we could say, here are the metrics. We've been knocking it out of the park for X
consecutive years. This is what we've done without a break, and this is what we've been able to build. Now we're taking it to the next level and looking at you sponsors or you podcast network. And oh, by the way, now that we have this undeniable audience that we've built, now we want to move to seasons where we take the summer off or what have you. That was the original plan. And now we're kind of like, do we keep going, for that long? And again, the keep going, the opposite of keep going is not just stop completely, but do we keep going in the way that we've been going, knowing how much it takes to make this show happen.
Right.
And knowing that like people who do this at this level, as you mentioned offline earlier, are generally doing it either with a button pusher job during the day that doesn't require what's required here for us, or this is their full-time thing. So it's just like they have the time and energy, and that's not everybody's story, of course, but like, just for us, I don't know anybody else who's hitting all the cylinders that we do while also doing that with just a skeleton crew.
And it'd be a little bit different if the main source of our content was just the two of us talking. Mm-hmm. It's a whole different element. We've said it time and time again when you're bringing in other people and guests to talk to. It's a whole process to get that set up and find people that are interesting and telling a different perspective. And like that is a whole process.
Exactly. And what's interesting is oftentimes when someone comes on the show, as people know, we get so many of our guests from referrals, but people don't often pull people from their own network. So it's from their professional network, their educational network, what have you. So what ends up happening is you start to talk to people who are similarly aligned just because they've come out of the same pool. So we've got to figure that out. You've got to try to space the episodes in the right way. So there's a lot of work and strategy that really goes into it that probably some people just don't even, realize. So as we look to where our lives are individually going, the obligations that we have collectively, i.e. The philanthropy piece that's not going anywhere. We're just trying to figure out how to keep it all in the air, but do it in a way that the trade-off is not at the expense of our own well-being and ability to rest and all those things. So,
right, because I love y'all, but my health goes before everybody else's, and my sister's health comes before y'all's health. So take that how you will. I wouldn't expect people to be any otherwise about themselves or their family.
Right. So I mean, if you guys have any ideas, any feedback, you know where to find us. Talk to us. We know that some of you are long-standing supporters of the show, and you know what we're about, and you've been the sort of the backbone that has kept the show and encouraged us to keep going. And now we are at a very real crossroads that goes beyond, oh, we're just tired and we need a break. It's like, oh no, life is about to intensify. And if we're already feeling this way, how do we navigate that? Right. So that's what we're trying to figure out. That wasn't really a high note to end on.
It wasn't, but true. I mean, keeping it a B.
Yes, that's where we are. That's what we're figuring out. We are not leaving you all in the lurch, but there are some things to be discussed. Some changes might be coming. I don't know. You might not see me doing videos every week. We're going to see what happens. We're going to try some things out, do some A/B testing, and see where things go. But, in this last solo episode I did, I think it was the last one or the one before that. I can't remember. I talked about not being afraid to pivot. And you've got to be agile. That's a word that gets thrown around in corporate spaces all the time. But it's true. You have to be flexible and see what's working and see what's not. Know when to push, know when to pull back, and know when to change things and keep the momentum going. And that is the exercise that we are in right now. The December 26er brand is here to stay. That's not going anywhere for sure. But we're trying to figure out, what does the 26er brand look like for 2022 and beyond? How do we do it in a way where we can ensure we don't flame out and it does crash and burn?
Hey, diga, man.
Anything else you want to tell the people?
Hey, mi familia, hasta luego.
Oh man, you're not gonna let this go. We need those other results to come in, man. We need the other result. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, we needed to come in. I need to know that there's some Nigerian or Ghanaian blood pumping somewhere.
So listen, thank you all for rocking with us. Thank you for tuning into these episodes where we kind of just talk about whatever's going on. I do regret waiting so long to have this one because there was like a major pop culture moment that which is old now. So
everybody.
But
drove,
so because we do
these
episodes on our schedule, there are some lively conversations that we're having off the air. But by the time we get on here, it's just not relevant anymore. So that's it, folks. Listen, we ended this one on a different note than we normally do. But even if you don't have feedback for us about what you're thinking on our journey to the December 26er brand or the next iteration of the December 26er brand, you know what to do. If you've enjoyed this episode, like, share, subscribe, tell somebody about it. And if you don't do anything else, remember to be extraordinary on an ordinary day. Take care.
Viva la España.